All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to Hiking the Guelph Correctional Centre Lands. We're so excited to have you joining us this morning and to learn more about hiking in Guelph with Bill. My name is Danny, and I will be your guide and moderator for this webinar. This event is part of the 2Rivers Festival that celebrates and appreciates the Speed and Hermosa rivers. Our hearty thanks to the organizers from the Guelph Hiking Trail Club for sharing their passion for our rivers with you today, and thanks to each and every one of you for attending this event. The festival is organized and run by volunteers and involves many community organizations. So whenever you're able, please do show your support to these organizations that are doing such good work in our community. One organization in particular really needs to be mentioned, which is the Guelph Outdoor School, who is our event sponsor and generously makes this festival possible each year, as well as everyone who buys ad space in our 2Rivers Festival Guide. You can see all our advertisers on our website where you RSVP'd for this event, or in our 2Rivers booklets. Overall, there are 40 great events happening over the course of the next 2 months, so lots of other opportunities to RSVP to other events that pique your interest. Finally, this festival is a project of the Wellington Water Watchers, who I have the privilege of working with. It is our hope that if we fall in love with our rivers, we will want to further protect them now and into the future. All right, it is my pleasure to introduce Bill Mungall from the Guelph Hiking Trail Club. This event was originally supposed to be a guided hike, but Bill has been kind enough to adapt this with some materials so we can each go on a self-guided hike at a later time. Bill's going to help us explore what the Guelph Correctional Centre Lands have to offer, and then we'll have time for a Q&A session after his presentation. And you can use the chat box to type in any questions, as well as just unmute and ask Bill yourself. All right, so that is it from me. Bill, I'm going to send it over to you now.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Danny. Yeah, I'm Bill Mungall. I'm one of a dozen and a half leaders of hikes with the Guelph Hiking Trail Club. And the little bit about the club, we have about 85 kilometers of trail which we manage and maintain, mostly on private land, and they go out in three directions from Guelph. The Kissing Bridge Trail that starts in Silver Creek and goes to West Montrose. We've got the Speed River Trail that runs from Guelph to Cambridge, and also the Radial line trail that we're going to talk a bit about today, which goes from Guelph to the Bruce Trail. And that sort of brings me to what led to this trail in the first place. Where this hike would be starting is on the edge of Victoria Road, which was and is at the edge of some lands owned by the province of Ontario that were associated with the Guelph Correctional Centre, or as the locals know it, the OR, or at least the older locals. OR for Ontario Reformatory. And in fact, one of our side trails is called the OR side trail. But back in a little bit about the club first. There's, apart from the trails, we have about 270 members, and in normal times, our leaders publish a schedule of organized hikes. We usually have 2 or 3 hikes a week, and the leaders are very savvy about interesting places to go hiking. They know how to conduct safe hikes and to manage large groups of people and crossing different types of terrain. We do between 125 and 150 hikes a year, and we go to some pretty interesting places, and it's a good bunch of people, and you always meet new people. That's a great thing. There's the general public can show up for hikes. You don't have to be a member of the club, and anyone can come. You just simply show up with your boots on. In any event, this hike today is along the banks of the Hermosa River. We go down one side of the river and back up the other. And the hike begins at, as I say, at the edge of Victoria Road. Back in 1909, when the province bought these lands, part of the idea was that they would rehabilitate prisoners and make good farmers out of them. So back in 1971, the province had
been operating a jail farm for 50 years, and it suddenly decided that um, the program wasn't really necessary anymore, trying to make farmers out of prisoners. So they canceled the jail farm part of the program, and at the same time, there was a group of citizens in Guelph who were inspired by the opening of the Bruce Trail in 1967, and they thought it would be groovy to connect Guelph to the Bruce Trail, starting from this point and at the edge of the jail land. So they approached the superintendent of the jail, knowing that the prisoners were all behind bars now again instead of out on the jail farm property, and they said, "Well, how about we start walking from Guelph to the Bruce Trail along these lands?" And the superintendent said, "Yes, by all means, you can make use of these lands for the trail." And so the Radial line trail has been there ever since. And the reason it's called the Radial line trail is because for most of the way through that property, it follows an old abandoned electric rail line, which was built in 1917 through that property and went right into downtown Guelph, right to where the Via station is today. It ran on the city streetcar tracks right up there. And this was quite the rail line. As I mentioned in the text for the hike, the rail cars, which were built in Cambridge, were actually capable of going 140 kilometers an hour. And some people say that they went close to that in some of these sections that were relatively unpopulated. In any event, so that's why the trail is there, because the jail let us in 1971. And it goes along this interesting radial line trail on one side of the river, and then switches over to the OR-side trail, or the Ontario Reformatory side trail, on the other side of the river once you get down to Stone Road. And along the way, you see various points of interest. And the reason we wanted to do this hike last year, but also especially this year, is because the province has just sold the lands on the west side of the Aramasa to a developer. And over the next number of years, provided the economy recovers, those lands where the Guelph Turfgrass Institute is, they're going to be radically transformed and built into various work-live communities on the former jail lands. And so that landscape is going to be radically transformed, and that's one of the points of interest. We invite you to climb the hill up to the back of the Turfgrass Institute. It's a stupendous view from there of Guelph, and just walk around the building and then walk back down the hill to the trail again. So that's just an example of one of the points of interest you're going to see along the way. And I'll let you take it from there. It's take the link with you on your app, or print off a copy and of the text, and it'll really bring to life quite a lot of the features that you see along the way. And I believe we had 10 points of interest over the walk, which should take, I would think, about 90 minutes to do, maybe slightly more, because it would be about 7 kilometers by the time you're done. It just forms a giant loop around that area. And I think that's it. If you're interested in joining us at the hiking club, where you can see us online or on our website at www.guelphhiking.com, all one word. And on the website, you'll also see that we have a guidebook, or we call it a handbook to our trails, our 87 kilometers of trails. That was published in 2017, and it's for sale for $20 or $15 if you choose to join the club, which is just $25 a year membership. In any event, I think that's it, Danny. That was all of my remarks. So I invite everybody to get out there when you have the time and a nice day, and do this trail as often as you like, because it's there and open with permission for everyone to use it, from the courtesy of the province and the city of Guelph. Okay.
That's great, folks. Bill. Thank you so much. We do have time for Q&A, where we can pick your brain a little bit, Bill, on everything to do with hiking Guelph. I'm personally interested to know if you like what your favorite parts of the radial line hike in particular are. And then for anyone else who wants to ask questions, you can either type those into the chat or you can just unmute and ask your question to Bill. So Bill, I'll let you start out just telling us what you like about the hike personally.
My favorite part. I would nominate points of interest number 5 and 6 on the link, especially number 6, I guess, because it's kind of neat. When the radial line railway was put in, at the time it was put in, they decided that because cattle were being raised on the jail farm, they decided that they would put in an underpass for the cattle to go underneath the railway tracks, and as a safety measure. And so that underpass for the cattle is still there. You have to stoop your head a little bit to go through it, and it's just, you can see it from the main trail easily. And when you get through it, you then continue up a fairly rough trail, up a bit of a slope, and you come to this amazing number of overhanging cliffs that are about 40 feet high that tower over the valley, and that's the remains of a geological phenomenon called the Guelph Spillway. But it's quite unexpected in a place like Guelph. We don't normally think of Guelph as having cliffs lining the valley of the Aramasa, which are present throughout much of the valley of the Aramasa, actually, for many, many miles, both above and below Guelph. But they're especially prominent right here. It's you might say it's a little bit of the Rockwood Conservation Area, only inside Guelph. So anyway, that's maybe, to answer your question, Danny, that's maybe my favorite spot along this hike.
The way that you described it, I don't know how anyone could not go check it out now. It sounds beautiful. We have another question. You mentioned that you can that there's about 2 to 3 hikes a week posted from the Guelph Hiking Trail Club. Where can you find those postings? Is it just on the website? What kind of adventures? Is it all local?
Yeah, they're not just on our trails. They're generally within a half-hour drive of Guelph, although sometimes we do go further afield than that. But typically what we'll do is we'll meet at a rendezvous point, which is publicized somehow or another. And usually that's right in downtown at the covered bridge next to the parking lot next to the covered bridge. That's where probably 90% of our hikes start from. And the way you find them is you go to the website and you look for newsletter, and you get the current newsletter, and you look at the back of it. Usually the last 10 pages or so are the lists of all the hikes and the times and the rendezvous points and the difficulty of the hike. And you pick ones that interest you and that you think are within your ability, and you simply show up. As I said, you just simply show up, and the hike leader will welcome you and sign you in with a waiver, and then we arrange carpooling to go to hikes. But we of course aren't running hikes at this time. No hiking club is running hikes across Ontario because of COVID-19. So we're not sure when we'll be starting that up again. Probably in the fall, but who knows? But that's normally how things work. Is you look at the back of the newsletter, and you find where those hikes are. And so any of the member of the public can do that. It's not just for club members.
That's awesome. And then what's the usual turnout in a pre-COVID world?
Well, this hike, when we ran it last year, actually had 37 participants, but normally our hikes are rather less than that. I would say, anywhere from 8 to 12 people would be typical for a hike. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then someone from the call also asked if you if the trails are open to individuals to walk on their own right now.
Oh, yes, they are. Right now, some are, some aren't. You have to look at the website to see where they aren't. In a few places where they cross public property, and there aren't very many of those, but the City of Guelph and the Conservation Authority have both closed all their trails, or our trails that are on their property. And most of the private landowners, but not all, have left them open, on the other hand. So, for example, I coordinate the Speed River Trail between Cambridge and Guelph, and all of it is open except for one of our trailheads at the end of White Law Road. So yes, you can go hiking on your own on the trails. You just have to check the website before you leave home, just to make sure that the piece you want to hike is in fact open. One last thing though, I would say our trails are a little bit hard to find. The guidebook, which looks like this now that I'm back on, the guidebook actually shows you how to find the crossings of the roads for our trail, because if you're just driving along, they're quite easy to miss. So the guidebook's fairly essential just to find the trailhead, not to mention the trail itself. But yeah, most of the trail, I would say 80% of the trail is still open for travel right now.
That's awesome. I actually got to do a piece of the Radial Line Trail just last week, and it's beautiful. So I understand why you chose it as a focus, and also lovely to see your face back on the call.
Yeah, took a bit.
Did anyone have more questions for Bill? You can either drop your question into the chat, or you can just unmute as well. And then for anyone who wanted it, I also linked the map photos and more info, link to that in the chat as well. Okay, we have one here. What is the farthest trail that you've done with the Guelph Hiking Club?
Oh, well, I've led a half dozen trips over the years to the Niagara Gorge in New York State, on the American side of the Niagara Gorge. And it's about 19 kilometers in length. The drive to get there is about an hour and 15 minutes to get over the Lewiston Bridge. And we basically hike from Lewiston, from Art Park, to the American Falls. And it's quite the thrilling hike. You're walking along the very edge, and I mean the very edge, of the biggest rapids you would ever see in North America. Standing waves that are 25 feet high, and you could throw a stone into them and you're that close. So that's about as far as we go. We also go to the Beaver Valley, which is nearly as far on the escarpment, and take advantage of the Bruce Trail quite a bit as well. It's sort of from Dundas all the way up to the Beaver Valley. But that would be about as far as we would go, but that's a little unusual. Most of our hikes, I would say, are half an hour, 40 minutes away at most. Yeah.
Well, I personally am very excited for getting to go onto one of the trips in the near future. Hopefully in the near future.
Okay, we may see you there.
All right, that was all of the questions that I had on here. I don't know if anyone else had anything else that they wanted to ask before we head out here. But I just want to give a big thank you to you, Bill. You are such a font of knowledge on this, and it was really fun to get to hear from you and get to learn from your expertise.
Yeah, no, this has been fun, Danny. Thanks for setting this up.
Yeah, no problem. All right, all. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.